And we're live again with another episode of Let's Talk Health Tech, and with my amiable host, Larry Trotter, and myself, Brendan McAdams. And today we have Tina Williams-Karoma, the CEO and founder of CyDeploy, and we're going to talk about health tech and security and how to get traction. And this will, I think, Larry, I think you're excited about this episode, aren't you? All right. So with that, and just a little background on CyDeploy is Tina and I met because she's a Tedco company here in Maryland, and she and I ended up working together for a little while, early stage, and since then, you've gotten some traction and gotten going, and so Tina, why don't you spend a moment talking about what CyDeploy does and how you got started, and the backstory.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Brendan and Larry. Excited to be here. So, yeah, the backstory with CyDeploy. I've been in the cyber field for over 2 decades now, and one of the common things that I saw and still see is that there's this tension between cybersecurity teams and operations teams, and the tension is normally around, hey, security is like, make that change. You need to patch. Like, this is outdated. And then the operations and IT teams are like, not until I know what that change is going to do. I got to see how it's going to impact my stuff. Right now, everything is running fine.
Which is
So,
fair,
not right. It's fair. It's
but
fair. Right. That's
sometimes it does lead to negligence. That goes on for months, something that should take a week.
Yeah, because availability is a part of the CIA triad, right? For cybersecurity, confidentiality, integrity, availability. So, the operations teams have a valid point on availability. Totally get it. But the challenge is that a lot of the breaches and hacks that you see are 80, 90+% of the time because of misconfigured and unpatched systems. So that means that it's just like when you fail to make these updates in a timely manner, that the result of it is that you get compromised. And so I really started CyDeploy to help reconcile that tension. Like, how do we position organizations to be able to make changes quickly and with confidence that those changes won't disrupt operations? So all of CyDeploy's features are really focused on helping them understand the impact of change before they make it, so that when they do make the change, they're like, okay, we're good. Shell and the value that we look to deliver with our customers.
So,
Very good.
oh, go ahead, Brendan.
No, go.
So the first thing that comes to my mind is, traditionally in operations, what IT teams would do is have a stage environment or a dev environment where they would have the same servers, and that's where they would do their
Yep.
testing to make
Yep.
sure nothing breaks when you do a patch. So what's the
Yes.
differentiator here?
Yeah. Perfect. You're spot on. So to expound upon that, yes, they would have a staging environment where they can test the patch first. They would also have certain scripts or even manually have to run through some tests. And some organizations take what Microsoft calls a ring approach, which is, okay, we'll do our testing here in this staging environment, then we'll roll it out a bit to some, additional small group of users. If they don't complain, then we'll roll it out to like a broader group. And if they still don't complain, then we'll roll it out. And then we'll finally do like a full deployment, right? So what CyDeploy does is, for that ring approach where you're trying to gauge with these different users and different user bases, they all might use the system a little bit differently. So we're going to deploy like in these ring approaches. But CyDeploy, we proactively learn and observe how the system operates and how the system is used by users on a day-to-day basis. And we use machine learning to create those automated functional test scripts that system admins can play back in that staging environment. So that's the piece around testing. And then we take snapshots of systems. But even before the snapshot, we do a discovery exercise. So if you're going to say, hey, is anything going to break in this system, you first have to know what actually constitutes that entire system. Because sometimes, customers will be like, oh, it's this server right here. It's like, yeah, but what is that server talking to? Is it depending on anything else? So we have a really robust asset discovery exercise to ensure that we draw the boundary around the entire workload. And then we can take a snapshot of that workload and deploy it into a staging environment, whether it's the customer's own cloud, another on-prem server, or in like a Hyper-V. So they can choose where they want that staging environment deployed. And then you can run those functional test scripts that are created out of our machine learning, like that from the learning in the live environment, you can take those functional test scripts and then you can execute them in the staging environment before and after the change that you make in the staging environment. And we provide a diff report that says, hey, these are the things that are going to fail or not after the change that you're planning to make, the patch, the configuration change, whatever that is.
I'm sorry, were you gonna say something,
I
Larry?
was just gonna say, it sounds like you're anticipating the failures before you actually test the failures, which is something different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even so much that it's an anticipation of fail or not, but we are looking for the functional differences, right? Like, so if after the change, if a common thing that is reflected in the functional test scripts, because we've learned and observed and built the scripts off of what's actually happening in the production environment, when the question is asked, is anything going to break? What we're doing is we're basically replaying or re-executing what happens in a normal day-to-day basis in that environment. So if one of the things that happens is that, hey, for privileged users, they're regularly pulling up the command line. If after this change, like, and we replay, if you think of like a robotic process automation, except it's intelligent because you don't just have the ability to replay it on the same machine you recorded on. That's in essence what CyDeploy is doing. We're playing back what normally happens in production. And if that activity isn't successful, it'll be reflected in a diff report after the system administrators run those same tests before and after their change.
In the in the healthcare world, and I'm thinking in particular health systems and hospitals and health systems in particular, they've got so many different applications and systems, and I would think that they'd be uh, they would require an environment like this, and yet there's probably a fair amount of resistance to do it. I mean, what do you run up against in the healthcare world? I mean, there's just so many things that are interconnected. I would think that this is
Yeah.
just a kind of a hairball of a problem that needs a solution like that, and at the same time, it's a challenge, right, to
Yeah.
sell into that crowd.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah,
run into?
definitely. Yeah, yeah. We have one customer. It took probably about 2 years just to get to
Man,
the master software license. I mean, pretty large system, right? But 2 years just to get to the licensing part. And then now the next step is the actual task order, right? To get started, right? So yes, and I think a part of it though, some of the questions and concerns was really around how does this thing get installed? Like how
that's what I was
intrusive
thinking.
is it? Where does it go exactly? That sort of thing. And so one of the things that we did, Google had funded us to create a version of our solution that would be useful for small businesses and enterprises. And so we created that. But what we decided to do is still maintain that as our community edition. And so, because the agent is the agent, right? Like it's whether for our paid versions or our free one, but the difference is you unlock different features, right? And so what we've been able to do now is like, hey, go use our community edition, have your, teams download it, install it, see how it works, see the impact that it has, how it's interacting. And that actually gave some level of confidence, right, to the organization to say, oh, okay, we see where this thing
A
is
case
going, how
study.
it runs. Right, exactly. And so that's something that we've found helpful. And we've had quite a spike in downloads of our community edition, right? Like just so people can kind of get a feel for it. In no wise has all the full features, right, of our paid solution, but it does give you an idea of, okay, this is where it installs, this is how it runs as a service, this is where I find it on my system, that sort of thing. This is what the output. Again, the free or community version doesn't have like the pretty picture kind of dependency maps. Like you get a
Yeah.
flat file with information around connections and things like that, but at least you get a feel for it. So and yes, the health environments are very, very complex. I mean, some of it gets into just like the politics. Okay, like which teams are we the most comfortable with, have the greatest confidence in us? Like, let's, maybe plan out starting with those systems first, ones that are a little less complex. So like Epic tends to be like very involved, like a lot of different pieces and parts and very convoluted. So not starting with that one, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's several other tier one systems. So it's a mix of technical as well as like conversational relationships to determine where we get started and proving success there first, and then expanding out to other systems.
So is your ideal customer like chief information security officer kind of a
Well, actually,
If you
it's
can
really
find
more on the
one.
side of what's that?
If you can find one in healthcare.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really actually a conversation. So, starting on the security team director level is helpful, but you quickly have to bring in, they can be your champions, but the check writers are really on the engineering operations, like director of IT, director of engineering side, because they're typically the ones that are responsible for making the changes, right? Doing the testing and rolling out the changes. So it's good if you have like a strong champion on the security side. But ultimately, the check writers, the ones that are judged by availability and uptime, are typically like in your operations, your IT, and engineering team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and Larry both have in some ways the same kind of sales driver in the sense that a big part of what you're communicating is your elimination of risk, embarrassment, lawsuit,
Reputation.
downtime, right? Not sexy
Mhm.
stuff. It's like Larry sells concrete.
It's
Is the way I
sexy.
describe it.
It's sexy. He's just
Right.
jealous.
You
He's just
just
jealous.
gotta put a little lipstick on it,
It's right. It's like you try. I mean, like we have artisanal sand in our, but it's still, it's like you gotta have it, and you're sort of in the same. You're in the same world where you're basically saying if you do these things, you make this investment. You don't end up in the newspaper. You don't end up with class action lawsuits, that sort of thing. Is that right? Is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
as
yeah, it
opposed
really
to
is.
hey, you save a whole bunch of money or you make money?
Well, I think that, well, one thing just on the sexiness of it, I literally had an investor say that it just like the concept bored him. It just wasn't. He was like, "Yeah, no, I understand it. I just it's
Was he
not
a
it's
IT guy, a tech guy?
he has a tech background, but an investor with a tech background, yes." And it was just like patch change management improvement is just it's not threat hunting. It's not like
It's not move fast
ransomware.
and break things, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the stuff that like
Until his
we
portfolio takes a hit.
That's
until
right.
exactly. Yeah, and I think that the other piece about like CyDeploy definitely is we categorize it as a security play because typically like the changes that have that time sensitivity are the cybersecurity changes, right? Like it's ones that you need to
Yeah.
roll out expeditiously because like there's another threat looming if you don't roll it out in a timely manner. But really it's a business like continuity sort of tool,
Which
right? Like
is
Yeah.
it's
HIPAA
something.
one part of HIPAA compliance. You have to have continuity emergency recovery in place.
Exactly. Yeah, and the amount of money that you could lose in downtime, right? Or so even, and then when you think about patient health and safety, right? Like that's one of the questions that we're often asking with these systems and helping organizations to determine, is this a tier 1 system or not, right? It's what kind of like implications does downtime have, right? On health, on safe and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, security is often, the emphasis is often on like confidentiality and availability, like said, is a core part
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, for sure.
cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Ransomware.
it's not a conflict. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So it seems to me almost like you'd almost go to could you sell to the chief financial officer or the COO or in a lot of cases there's somebody who's in charge of risk.
yes,
And I
yes.
wonder if it's like, you go to them and that guy or that man or woman goes to the IT department and the IT department, what the reaction is, hey, listen, you do your thing.
We haven't played around with that on entrance into the healthcare, but we are toying around with that a bit in our other target sector, which is mid-market financial.
Yeah.
So we started our outreach with the CFOs, the financial leads, right, of those
Really?
organizations. We did. Not so far.
To your
It's been
To your
yeah.
defense, Tina, it's a very outdated business model where the CFO used to make those decisions. And I don't even know why, like within the last 5 years, it still exists because it makes absolutely no sense. The CFO has no tech background. It's like telling the CISO to make financial decisions about the organization. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's yeah, we tried to frame it, we tried to lean into our inventorying part, like when I talked about like draw the boundary, like before you even get into like, hey, is something gonna break? Do you even know like what the boundary is for that system, right? Like what are all the servers and workstations? What are all the parts of it? So we tried to emphasize like the inventorying part like of it where it's just like, hey, if there's some obsolete tech that you no longer need, right? Like on your way to kind of, drawing this boundary, let's just start with the inventorying part first. And, maybe there's some stuff you can get rid of, like and that saves you, money. Like you can decommission these things, right? Like if there's a tech that you no longer need, then hey, we'll find it, right? As we're doing our discovery, we'll find it
Okay.
that can remove some operational expenses. That's how we tried to we didn't sell the full like the ultimate value of CyDeploy, which is like impact of change. We just sold the discovery and inventorying part first,
This is when
right?
you were
Like
talking to the
so
CFOs, you mean?
this is when
Right.
we were talking to
Okay.
the
Because they, in
CFOs,
terms
right?
of
Like
dollars.
let's
Okay.
keep the exactly trim dollars, remove these operational costs and expenses if you no longer need to maintain this equipment that, really isn't in play. That's where we tried to focus it. Yeah, we got a whole bunch of email opens and all of that kind of stuff, but real bites, no. So, we'll keep playing around with it, but I'm not sure that that is gonna be like a consistent way in, a lot of things are trial and error, but
I keep
yeah.
thinking the Change Healthcare, uh, fiasco is a
Yeah.
little dated. You'd find but I suspect that if you kind of manage the news, like monitor the news, there's a new one,
Yes.
right? And then
Yes.
and then you send an email out to everybody, after that and say, "Hey, we coulda helped them.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
we could have prevented this from happening."
Yeah, I mean, I think, sometimes we refer to them as, like, the ambulance chasers, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
"Hey," we show
yeah,
up at the scene of the at the scene of the
yeah,
accident. But I think the broader challenge with like cybersecurity and I think some of it, and one of my just investor advisors sat down with him. He was like, there's a certain sense of like inevitability that has settled into organizations. Like all these breaches and stuff, like, should I really make an investment here, like above and beyond? Isn't it that I'm going to get breached no matter what? Some of it is this attitude of inevitability. And I
yeah,
feel like that's a part of like what to overcome, like when you're messaging, right? Like that cyber breaches and cyber insecurity is not just inevitable, right? Like there are things that you can do, but I think it's also like where a lot of the approach has been like, let me just kind of slap in this detection and response tool and I'll be secure, right? It's really the practices of the company. Like I've taken the approach with CyDeploy where, separately I have a services company. I really try to position things where my services company goes in and kind of understands the practices of the company first, because just trying to slap a technology into like an environment of like undisciplined bad practice, like do you even have a patch management or a change management process,
Right.
right? Like, because if we try to come in with this tool and there's just this ad hoc
Yeah.
kind of, approach to change, or oh, we'll put it on the back burner and we have this like huge security debt of changes and a backlog and poams. Cytoploy isn't magic, right?
right.
It needs to get inserted into a process.
What about
Yeah.
selling through like a kind of an elite channel like the PwCs and the Anderson Consultings and that because what they do is they drag you along and they have put a whole bunch of bodies on this to do it on behalf of a large health plan or health system. And you
Yes.
just get plugged in along the way. You're just one of the operating costs that they bundle into the service. and they're talking at a level inside the organization where they could really influence that decision-making process. And
Yes.
have you had success with that?
So with not PwC, but certainly one of its large competitors, we did. We did a pilot with them. The pilot went well. And then it comes to at the director level. Now let me take you up to the VP level where the decision is made at, to deploy. That's been a year and a half
Really?
long discussion. I mean, really what we're focused on right now is identifying like a handful of like really solid advisors for equity that really believe in what we're doing and have the Rolodex of value added resellers, these, large IT consultancies
Yeah.
like the PwCs and will hand walk us in. I'm just finding like trying to get above the noise of cyber companies to really communicate the differentiation of our value. Like CyDeploy is a patented solution. Like it is innovative. It is taking to the market, isn't currently there. And yet the current appetite for cyber tools, like the disproportionate amount of investment is going to detection and response tools, not to tools that kind of dial it back into like referring to the cybersecurity framework, identification and protection, right? CyDeploy sits in that identification and protection sort of realm, right? Like you have to have a clear understanding of what's in your environment first, server, hardware, software, but down to registries and libraries, right? Like that is the kind of inventorying that we're doing to draw the boundary around like this is your system. When we make this change, let's understand the impact, right? But I think that's changing. Like Gartner has a prediction of they have a category of tools and solutions called like preemptive cybersecurity. And one of the sub areas of preemptive cybersecurity is automated asset exposure management. And so it's like proactively understanding what your assets are and what exposure they have and mitigating that in advance, right? And that's site deploy all day, right? Understanding your assets, here's your inventorying, here's your boundary, and we also have it so that we can point out like the vulnerabilities, the issues, right? Like we're not trying to be like a scanning tool like a Tenable or a Qualys or anything like that, but that is just a natural part of asset intelligence, right? To understand what that exposure is, so what changes you need to be making
Right.
on your
Okay.
system and be proactive in understanding that exposure and mitigating that exposure. That's where CyDeploy falls. And so, there's a trend towards that where a lot of these traditional detection and response tools are going to be displaced by this preemptive cybersecurity sort of tools. But it's just been a slow process. I feel like the market is having to catch up to the value that CyDeploy is offering.
A lot of very interesting stuff. Yes, cybersecurity, what we do can be challenging. My assumption here is really when it comes to actually you mentioned talking about the VP and getting above the VP. I think that's where someone like Brendan, who has a lot of experience in sales, really knows how to navigate those waters, can help you like bust through. Right. Sounds like you have a really good as to getting in, you have a good product. The IT teams are loving it, which is great. If they love it, then that, it's a great signal. But getting past that VP, and I think that's where having someone who's really skilled to talk to those VPs and, you know, essentially explain the value in terms that they understand and really makes them comfortable with making those decisions, I think is where it moves a lot faster. You're right
Yeah.
on a lot of things as far as, the breaches. There's so many today that people think it's just another thing and it's inevitable. Like you said, one of the challenges, I came up with this marketing idea for healthcare. And I think that one of the things people don't realize is, right, in healthcare, it's like your patient records got breached. Yeah, just another thing, right? From the patient perspective. But if you
Yeah.
start digging into really explaining what that means, what patient records
Yeah.
got breached, like, let's say you had a sexually transmitted disease, or if you
Yeah.
had breast surgery, or like your x-rays were being shown, that's different than saying your health data is breached, right? And that's, so it's
Yeah.
really like informing, so patients, when they hear that, they're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute,
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
this is a
whoa.
little bit
Exactly.
different, right? So I
Yes.
think that's one
Yes.
of the marketing things. I think that's one of the marketing strategies that are different. And also what's big now is compliance. right? Like you
Yes.
said,
Yeah.
people think breaches are inevitable, but compliance is nearly a requirement to do business, right? So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
get it done. So I
Yeah.
I think that's another great avenue into your marketing efforts laying on like whatever your product is, coming from it from that angle, how this helps
Yeah.
you them meet compliance, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And the last piece is like when you do business, right? It's your buyer says, okay, we
Yes.
love your product, Tina,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now our security team is going to come in and want to understand some questions about your company,
Right.
right? And that,
Yeah.
that's kind of another angle. That's the angle I use because it's true. I mean, some of my clients hire me just to help them and speak on their behalf of like security
Yeah.
questionnaires. But they're like
Yeah.
these growth stage companies that boom, boom,
Right.
they have like 10 Brandons and they're getting
Right.
all these
Right.
questionnaires. So yeah. So I think the breach thing is, yeah, it's essentially almost played out trying to go from that angle. So I think you had a lot
Yeah.
of things spot on.
Yeah.
I had just a quick thought or question, and that is, you've got the community version. Are you prevented from charging for that because of the Google relationship, or could you charge for it?
No, no, no. The Google aspect was just like for a limited period of time, right? To make it available free to founders. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I think it's almost like a freemium, right? Like when we saw that, okay, people get like this notion of, okay, this is how it installs, this is like how it works on my system. Okay, it's not like taking over. It's a pretty simple step one, step two. It's I guess it's kind of given us just like an entrance point, right? Like to
So
say, yeah,
here's where I'm going with this, and that is, and I don't know how you might test this, but it seems to me like the hardest part of a sale like this is getting someone up and running. And once they're up and running and it's installed and they're using it, then they like it. This is classic behavior change, right?
okay,
I'm
yeah,
doing things a
Yeah.
certain way, and
Yeah.
now I got to do them a different way. And
yes.
Yes.
so if you can get people in the community and they get up and they get implemented and they
Mhm.
endure that, and then
Mhm.
they start to see the value of
Right.
the tool. When does that happen? 30 days, 60 days, whenever that happens,
Mhm.
maybe that's when they start paying. And they pay less than the enterprise version,
Right.
but they
Right.
pay.
Right.
And to me, one of the groups that you'd have to go after in this category would be anyone in an accelerator, right?
Yes.
So
Okay. Yeah.
they've got a tech product.
Yeah.
It's gotta have some they've got they're constantly iterating,
Mhm.
and they're starting to integrate with a bunch of other systems, and I don't know, I mean, you have to test this, but it wouldn't be that hard to do because you could go to 2 or 3 different accelerators and say, "Hey, I'm gonna give this to your teams for free,
Okay.
and it'll
Yeah.
help them with development, and it'll help with, security," and you could drag Larry and his services along with you.
Okay.
And then what would happen is at the end of 30 or 60 days, the end of the accelerator, they see the value. It augments their argument to, in this case, healthcare companies, because,
Right.
oh, we're doing all this discipline. We have this discipline in place, and there's a certain reassurance that comes with that, right? Larry and I were talking before the call that with HIPAA, right? Well, the thing of any founder company that starts in any health tech company that goes into a hospital or a health plan and starts to sell, and they get any sort of level of excitement,
Mhm.
and the customer says, "Oh yeah, this is great. We really want this." One of the things they'll go, "Oh, you got to talk to IT," and IT will say, they'll do a whole rundown on your security. And if your security sucks and you don't
Right.
have that in place,
Right.
right, it's a non-starter. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how good the app
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. That is
And
true. That's true.
so you would kind of be like a free or cheap insurance policy. And
Mhm.
at some level, it might be an enticement to for them to select that accelerator too. Oh, this
Mhm.
is one of the bundled services that they get as part of being in
Yeah.
that program. And then what I think might happen, and this is me just I'm riffing here, but
Yeah.
what happens is they go out and they talk to people, enterprise companies that they're selling to, the Hopkins and the Marylands and the Mayo Clinics and the Blue Crosses and so forth. And one of the things they talk about is, hey, well, this is, and when they get to the, hey, how are you with security? Oh, well, we do all these things. We've got Larry and we've got Tina and blah, blah,
Right.
blah, and all that.
Yeah.
And then those companies go, oh, who are these folks? And they may sort of infect, they're almost like they're a carrier
Right.
for
Right.
your
I love it. I
virus, as
love
it
the
were.
healthcare
Yeah,
analogies.
that's
Yeah.
probably not the sexiest way to market this, but what I mean, right? It's like that's a way to get like to introduce you indirectly, and sometimes the best way to get introduced to a customer is indirectly. So and so talks about you guys
Yeah.
and says, they're really great. And then they go, because then it's an indirect referral, and those have outsized influence oftentimes.
And
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
piggyback off what Brendan said, he hit it on the head. And to be very honest, behavioral change is the hardest thing to do to get any organization
Yes.
right
Yep.
to do,
Yeah. Yep.
but it can have
Yes.
the highest reward at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
So this is
Yes.
not discouragement at all, but I
Yes.
think
Yes.
Brendan like hit it on the head too. I feel like your ideal customer is that growth stage, because they have to be growth stage because your system, the nature of it, for what I'm hearing is you have to have some systems and some type of infrastructure. One or two
Yes.
systems that makes no sense for
Yes.
you. So
Yeah.
you have that,
Yeah.
and then everything Brendan said makes complete sense to me. And one
Yeah.
of the things you might already be working on this is if you're able to develop some sort of feature or how it can help out with AI models,
Right.
changes in those, because
Yes. Yes.
everybody's doing AI
Yes.
right
It's
now.
focused on
And
that.
they're
Yeah.
very, you
Yeah.
already know this, Tina, there's very
Yeah.
few security solutions for
Yes.
AI right now. Not
Right.
there's not a lot of security solutions.
Yes, yes.
I think that's
That's a
another
very
great
good point. Yeah, yeah.
avenue.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, it would be interesting to apply CyDeploy in that context. We'll have to look into that. Because I mean, it can, we look across like application, we could be a developer tool. Like there's so many developer tools, so we could be that, but
Developers love
we,
tools.
my goodness,
They
yeah,
do, they
yeah,
love tools.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I just wrapped up the Baltimore, HealthTech Accelerator,
yeah, yeah.
AI
That's where
health.
we
Oh, I
reconnected
could
finally. Yeah.
there's no reason why we couldn't, cajole them into talking to you and just
Yeah,
exploring
yeah,
that, and,
yeah,
because it seems to make a ton of sense because 'cause they're all dealing with really sensitive,
yeah, yeah.
data,
Data.
whether
Yeah.
it's one of them's a clinical trials company, a couple of them are rev cycle management. This affect ostensibly would lend credibility to their entire strategy and
Yeah.
solution offering. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love it. And I mean, we work, a lot of our current traction has come through other consultants, right? Like
Yeah.
that have a
Sure.
customer and
Yeah.
this just becomes like an enabler. Certainly like the Accentures and PwCs and, High Springs and stuff are like on a much larger scale of
Yeah.
that. But where we found like our greatest success to date is coming in through like a consultant channel, right? Like where
Yeah,
we
And
for
have
just
a
sure.
consider this. I'm not sure if it would work because I will really have to dig more into your tool, but I would also think about the GRC platforms, partnering with them.
yes,
As
okay.
I mean, it's a
Yeah,
third
Good
party because
idea.
that's
yes,
what all these health tech companies
yes,
do. They
yes.
always start off with the GRC
With
tools,
a
and
GRC.
then
Okay.
so if there's some way,
Expand from there.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
You
I
know
like it.
what?
I
At the
like it.
risk of, dragging this whole episode out further,
I know, it's so
would
interesting.
you do better in Europe than the United States?
In Europe and potentially Asia. It's always a challenge when you start thinking or looking international, right? Like when you're a smaller
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah.
But we've certainly had some interest, especially from like Japan,
Yeah.
in our tool. Like we had one of our early customers was a Japanese company. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, perhaps, right? Like I
Yeah.
think it's just like trying to it's been a challenge in like first narrowing to a specific vertical, right? Because it can be used. So I feel like we started like, I mean, if you look at like some of the early smattering of customers, I mean, it's all over the place, right? Like, and we
Yeah.
still have like defense, interest, right? Like, but you know how slow and convoluted that process
Mhm.
can be.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is just like where to start to get like the quicker, easier wins,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I still feel like that's a part of like because our customer base has been like here and here and here and here. It's just like I don't feel like we have that. Okay, like this
You're
is
speaking to
like where we're
everybody
yeah,
instead of
yeah, yeah.
somebody
It's
really understanding one person and that message clicks with them.
exactly. So, we've kind of honed in and narrowed, and healthcare is one of those verticals, like US healthcare, right? Is where we're like really leaning in. But I mean, the reality is that the tool is applicable for any industry in
Yeah,
Sure.
any
Yeah.
country, right?
yeah.
Like it's like
Right.
That's
that's
how
the
all products
reality.
and services are really.
Right.
That's what they all really are. And then let's say most of them. And then, but when you're starting small, like you said, if you're trying to speak to everybody, it's really hard to
Yeah.
capture someone's
Yes,
attention.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So to answer your question, yes, Brendan, I definitely think there would be interest like
Yeah.
in Europe as well as in Asia, like in particular, Japan is where we've gotten the greatest interest. They have there's like a whole like event even coming up like this year. Now we're in 2026, right? Where they invite us to come and showcase the technology and think, are we really positioned to kind of take advantage of like the leads and like the follow up and the follow through like afterwards, right? Like so, yeah, I think for now we might be staying home side, but
All
yeah.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been nice. This has been very
Yeah, it
very
has
I
been.
feel like I'm in a room with 2 really smart people, and,
Likewise.
As am I.
I get to learn about from you folks, and, I just
Likewise.
learned the other day that you're not allowed to eat the silicone packages in the Tylenol. I don't know. Did you know that?
The silicone, what do you mean? Like,
The
Those
the
little
the the
silicone
salt
those
I
little
just call it
packages,
the
you're not
salt in
supposed to
the
eat those.
packet.
Did you know that? I just heard that the other day.
I'm assuming that's a joke. I'm assuming that's a joke.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
trying to keep up with you 2, that's all. It was hard.
I got
So,
you.
hey,
I'm
well,
with
this is
you.
great. Thank you for coming on board. I hope this is, useful for the, audience. It was certainly useful to me, so I appreciate it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for having me,
and
guys. Yeah.
how do we people find you?
Yeah, so CyDeploy, we're very active on LinkedIn. We do have a presence on Facebook, Instagram, X, but not as active there. So LinkedIn is the best place to find us. And of course, our website, CyDeploy.com. I highly encourage you to try our community edition, see how we work, get your foot in the water. So that's CyDeploy.com/owl, the animal, the bird, this, owl, this. So
Alright,
that's our community edition.
very good. Alright, folks. Well, thanks very much, and, that's a wrap.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you. See
Nice
you
to meet
all.
you, Tina.
Okay.
Best of
Okay. You
luck.
too. All right. Thanks.